Hey guys, it's Jeff here. Originally, Josh was going to do an intro for this podcast, but he is still feeling under the weather, and so we ask that you pray for him, continue to pray for his family. But on this episode of the DudeFax podcast, we are going to be talking about why do bad things happen to good people? And why do good things seem to happen to people that really don't deserve it? We're going to be looking at asking God that why question today. We're going to have a little bit of fun as well, and it's going to be some intriguing discussion, so you want to stick around. The podcast is coming up next.
Welcome to the DudeFax podcast. We're so glad you're here. We're four guys that are united by a love for coffee, Jesus, and corny jokes. In the past, we all served in ministry together. In the present, we create podcasts to help you get through your week. And in the future, we aspire to be the granddad that teaches his grandkids to pull his finger. So if you love Java, Jesus, and dad jokes, you're going to fit right in. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy this week's episode of the DudeFax podcast.
And so we want to continue to pray for our boy Josh. He will be missed tonight, but we are thankful that you are here for the DudeFax podcast. Welcome, gentlemen. You know, it's good to see you. I know we did a 2024 podcast that's already aired this year, but we technically haven't seen each other since last year. So it's a genuine pleasure to be back.
Official DudeFax podcast of 2024.
That's true. It is. And Grant is still rocking his Bears stuff. It's good to know that, number one.
In a row.
Are you guys going to keep Justin, or are you dumping him?
I want to dump him, but I don't want to get roasted.
Yeah, that's true. Because, I mean, you could build an awesome team around him, and who knows what's going to happen. But wild things happening in sports, too. Of course, here in Tennessee, the Titans coach just got fired. And, just below us, the Alabama coach is retiring, which I think is like the greatest news ever.
I feel like everyone in the South that's not an Alabama fan just heaved like a collective sigh.
Yeah.
Like just of like relief. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Finally. It'll be interesting to see if they're any good moving forward, but definitely a wild 2024 already. Maybe it's the curse of Grant's pickle. Is your pickle still with us, Grant? I mean, at least like still alive.
Still alive, still thriving.
All right,
great
good.
shape to it.
Dang Picklewood!
It's good to know.
Still has
Well,
good
he's
visual
like I've been
appeal.
cursed by Grant's pickle for a long time.
Yeah, you were kind of pre-cursed.
Yeah.
Well, I think our nation, our world might be cursed by Grant's pickle because there's been some wild things in the news. And so we wanted to start off the podcast. We're going to be talking about why do bad things happen to good people, and why do bad people seem to have good things happen to them. But there's been some wild sort of things that make you question a little bit in the news recently. But recently in your neck of the woods, Grant, and you're repping them tonight, right? There's a plane flying around that had a door fly off mid-flight. I hear a guy's shirt blew off. Cell phones went flying out the door. They had to emergency land. Grant, did you go hunting for any treasures? Did you find anything?
No, but it was very confusing this week because supposedly also a little piece of, I want to say it was titanium, was removed from D.B. Cooper's tie that he left on that other famous flight from Seattle over Portland, where he parachuted over Clark County. So I was reading both headlines back to back thinking, oh, wait, what did they find? Another piece of D.B. Cooper evidence? A door in a guy's backyard? A cell phone flying out? It was interesting.
Well, the new iPhones are titanium, right?
They are, yes.
Yeah. So maybe it's all connected. I don't know.
Did DB Cooper have an iPhone?
That's the real conspiracy. Could you imagine though? I heard about the kid who had his shirt ripped off. Could you imagine just walking around and you're minding your own business and you're outside and a shirt just fall on your head? I mean, like, where did that come from?
Yeah, that would be a little disturbing.
Or a cell phone. You're sitting in your living room, Netflix and chilling, and a cell phone comes rocketing through your roof like a meteor. I mean,
that could kill someone.
Yeah,
just like hit them, and even if it like went through your roof, it'd probably, if it hit you in the head, take you out.
Especially the titanium iPhone.
Yeah.
So, I know the planes are careful whenever they dump their toilet loads, and they're those big frozen chunks of poopy. But they couldn't help this. So I mean, anything and everything was flying out the door, and bag of peanuts, whatever.
Yeah, talk about some space
people
peanuts.
are getting hit. Yeah,
a bag of what?
Peanuts. That's what it is.
So over the holiday break, I flew to Texas, and apparently Southwest gives out just like graham crackers now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the weirdest like mid-flight snack I've ever gotten.
They're not like the little Biscoff cookies. Is that what that is?
No, it was like a package of like miniature graham crackers. It almost reminded me of like Teddy Grahams, but not like teddy bear shaped.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know the history of graham crackers?
I hoarded a couple bags. What?
Do you know the history of graham crackers?
No.
Let me check my facts. Yeah. Okay. 1930. A Presbyterian pastor. Let me see it. Let's see.
It's already juicy.
Graham. Sylvester Graham became involved in the temperance movement, a social movement promoting abstinence from alcohol. Let's see. He believed that anything that provided physical pleasure excited lust in people, causing societal harm and defying God's wishes. He was a proponent of abstinence from sex, alcohol, and traditional sins in the eyes of Christianity, but he didn't stop there. He meant any kind of physical pleasure, including sleeping in a soft bed, having warm bath, or even eating delicious food.
What?
And I guess that was one of the reasons thing I've ever heard.
America!
Yeah. But I guess eventually they added sugar to his cookies.
Oh. So, yeah, I mean, he probably would not be a fan of the s'more. I mean, they have defiled his grams in a way.
I feel like the only way you get more like ultra conservative than that is just to be a Puritan in like the 1600s.
Yeah. It's to be those people in the village that moved to their own colony.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a crazy documentary.
I'm still mad that the monsters weren't real.
Yeah, no, that was the biggest letdown of that whole movie.
Yeah.
They're not?
I wanted real monsters.
Yeah. So Grant, you're repping Boeing today in your outfit. You said your brother works for him?
Worked for Boeing, yeah.
Worked for them. So he was not behind the door conspiracy.
I don't know. I think it was a Boeing 737 Supermax. Wasn't that the model of the plane?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they started producing that after his time there. I think Amazon might have beat him, but Boeing, I think, is still the largest employer in the state of Washington.
Oh.
Yeah. Didn't they ground all of those planes? Like, I heard it was like being investigated as like a defect, like line, model line wide.
They did, and it always sounds like a really inappropriate punishment. Like, what did the plane do? Why are they being grounded? Go to your room, airplane. Think about what you did.
Airplane just goes in, puts some headphones on, listens to some Pearl Jam.
You're not my real dad.
Speaking of things being grounded in Washington, sorry about the Huskies there, but Harbaugh and his band of Wolverine cheaters.
It's always a sad day when Michigan wins.
Yep. That's right. As a
Tax
Notre
dollars
Dame
at
fan,
Yeah.
I was
Well,
just
like
glad it
Notre
was
Dame.
not Alabama or Georgia. So tired.
Yeah,
So-
it was nice to see like two teams that were not the standard SEC
Yeah.
powerhouses.
And
It would
maybe
have been
we'll
nice
get
if the
a
Pac-12 went out with a win, but
yeah,
whatever.
That's true. Yeah, now you're going to be a part of the Big Ten. I mean, but is it
Washington
still going
will.
to be the Big Ten?
I root for the Beavers from
Oh,
Oregon
okay.
State for many different reasons.
So you're a Beav, not a
I love
Husk,
Beavers.
not Huskies.
No, my tax dollars pay for the Huskies,
All right.
so I feel like they ought to do good on my behalf. But I love Beavers.
So where are the Beavs going?
They're still part of the Pac-2. Them and Washington State, so we'll see where they end up. I don't know. Mountain West, probably.
SEC.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be traveling cross country for conference games. It's going to be awesome.
And I would love the irony of a team that is completely the opposite, being in the Southeastern Conference,
Yeah.
but being from the Northeast.
BYU, something like that.
Bring them
It'd be
young.
fun.
Bring them
Well-
young university.
Speaking of other weird stories, so this isn't a hockey story, but Stanley Cups are all the rage, and I have no idea why. I don't know about you guys, but people are lining up at Target to get these special edition Stanley Cups, the beverage cups, that have been out forever. Like my grandfather had one when he went to work. People are fighting over them. A guy literally went over the counter at a Target Starbucks and tried to walk out with a whole box of these cups, and he got wrestled to the ground. It's ridiculous. It's pandemonium. Do any of you guys own a Stanley Cup, and do you find this as crazy as I do?
I don't own any.
Yeah. Well, those new Stanley Cups, they became popular. They're not even like newly popular. They've been around for the past few years. I feel like basic white women everywhere have been drinking out of them for a good minute. But I stopped with so I bought a Yeti when they came out, or actually my wife bought a Yeti. I bought Walmart's version of a Yeti, which is literally the exact same.
Ozark.
Yeah, it's just got that Ozark label printed.
America!
But that thing works good for me. That's all I use. I have that, and then I have like a water bottle, like a double vacuum seal steel water bottle. But yeah, there's no need for those. I don't know why people are freaking out so much about them. Something about this Christmas, like it just blew up.
So Grant, you said you didn't own a Yeti, but
Yeah, I don't own
you alluded to that maybe somebody in your household owns a Stanley.
I can neither confirm nor deny
Oh,
that the person I'm married to owns 3 of them.
so she was not involved in this recent Stanley debacle, right?
I don't know. I haven't seen her all day.
That's where she is now.
She may have been there. She been to Target recently.
Yes.
I think it's funny. So I saw somebody that obviously on social media like TikTok and stuff that people have been making fun of Stanley people for the past week and a half or so. But one I saw was somebody who was so excited about their Stanley Cup that they took the, like the cardboard label that comes on the outside of the cup that you just peel off and throw away after you buy it. They took that off, laminated it, and then put it back on with like this Velcro, like reusable thing so they could take it on and off of their cup because they liked it so much. And it literally just has like the specs of the bottle. I don't know why they did that.
So I always thought the people who, put like the Yeti stickers on their vehicles, like that was always a little too much for me. And that was before I ever owned a Yeti. I thought, do you really like your, water bottle or mug that much to where you want to advertise it on your vehicle?
It's just like
and
people put the Apple sticker on their car after they.
Oh, yeah. Well, somebody bought me a Yeti a few years ago as a gift, and I tried it, and it, I got to admit, Yeti makes a good product. It really is good. I own a couple of them now. I'm not like a diehard. I own other mugs as well.
It keeps your drink cold for a long time.
Yeah, or hot.
Yeah, or hot. Yeah.
And but it's funny seeing people interact online about these Stanley Cups, and so many people talk about how my Yeti does so much more than the Stanley, yet the Stanley is like all the rage. But my favorite is seeing the people argue about arguing. They're like, I find this whole Stanley thing just dumb. And then people are like, well, why does it bother you what people do? And they're like, well, why does it bother you that I'm bothered by it?
Internet arguments are the best.
It's just something to rage about. I mean, come on, 2024, we can do better.
I feel like on the internet, you could put out as a comment on something. You could say the most agreeable thing. Somebody's gonna disagree with you.
Oh yeah,
I think it's just ridiculous. I think people do it professionally.
So do we need to say?
Yeah, right.
So do we need to say something agreeable about Stanley or something disagreeable just to get people riled up? Do either one of you guys have like a really like, polarizing statement that you want to share now that we can just cut out and show on TikTok or something? Stanley Cups are the worst. There, I started it. If you like Stanley Cups, you are probably a flat earther.
There's only one Stanley Cup, and they play for it at the end of the NHL season.
I like that.
What if Stanley Cups are to women as lifted trucks are to men?
Ooh.
No, I think that's
like
entirely accurate.
I like it. All right. Moving on. So a 42-year-old man was arrested in Leeds, Alabama after diving into a Bass Pro Shop aquarium naked. According to police, the man crashed his car. He disrobed into his birthday suit, and he executed this daring plunge into the store's massive aquarium. To me, it sounds like a typical evening in Alabama at a Bass Pro Shop. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, I was surprised that was newsworthy in Alabama. I feel like that's just like an average Tuesday.
I thought it was Florida.
Yeah, just giving Florida man a run for his money.
I was honestly, when I read that story, I was upset because I was like, man, this guy's out here living my dream of just being able to dive into a public aquarium naked.
Speaking of doing sensual things with our mouths, I would be afraid of what the fish would do to my naked body. I'm not going to lie.
I wouldn't worry about
There's some big fish in those aquariums.
Non-naked body, much less like my naked body. Terrible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there was a Bass Pro Shop once that I went to. I don't think there's any in. No, just kidding. There's one in Tacoma, but I remember seeing a snapping turtle.
Yeah,
in the tank at one. Yeah.
Yep. That would not be good.
Like one of the big ones, like the big alligator snapping turtles, like they have around here.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
Free Willy.
I've seen alligators at some aquariums at Bass Pro Shop. No.
Just to go on that same thing, I remember seeing a video one time of somebody like testing the bite of an alligator snapping turtle, and they were like, they'd hold up like a hot dog or like a bratwurst or something like that, and they would just tear it clean in half. So if that gives you any.
And if you're not experts in the male anatomy,
yeah,
just imagine.
They could really bite down hard on your toes.
Your big toes in danger.
So when I was in New York, I was fishing at West Point, and there's a reservoir right by the stadium, and I caught a snapping turtle, and it was just a little one, but it took forever for me to get that thing off of my hook. I had to get like pliers and literally pry his mouth open and not stick my fingers near it, so he didn't snap me. But yeah, a little one could do that damage. Just imagine a big old sucker.
Oh yeah, those things are no joke.
Yep, it would not be a good thing.
Have you seen the Turtle Man video?
Yes.
You're the turtle man.
Remember his
Maybe
TV
it was
show?
yeah.
I miss Turtle Man.
Yeah, he was like an exterminator or something. He just got animals out of people's houses.
Yeah, or he'd come out to their pond and
Yep.
strip down and go looking for snapping turtles barefoot.
I remember his TV show. He'd get like phone calls, and somebody'd say, "Yeah, there's a possum in my attic," and he'd just go up there and like yank it out. Yeah, I'm gonna go get that possum. I miss that. That was
My
good
horn
stuff.
don't work, so I just lean my head out the window and go yee yee.
Need to rewatch that video.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Classic. If you haven't seen it, to our listening audience, go to YouTube, Google Turtle Man. I think he's originally from Kentucky, so like Turtle Man of Kentucky. Yeah,
Yeah, you
You
won't
Google
be.
that.
You won't be
It's-
sorry. It's good.
it's good stuff.
He don't
Yeah,
smile too much because he got his teeth knocked out by a chainsaw.
I feel like I've met plenty of people that are like different like pieces of that man, but like never like all in one person.
Yeah,
He's a wonderful
I
cat.
I'm starting to think the guy in Alabama, he did this out of protest of Alabama not beating Michigan. Somehow he thinks Michigan screwed him over, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to protest, and he just went for it, or he's just a guy in Alabama that wanted to have some fun. I don't know.
I'd be willing
They
to
call
bet
that
that
Tuesday.
he is probably a Bama fan.
Yeah.
Do
And
you
now
know
that
why
Nick Saban's retiring, I mean, who knows what he'll do next.
Have we talked about
Oh,
why Alabama fans use the hashtag Roll Tide Roll?
No.
Because they can't spell elephant. Shout out Greg Moore. Jeff Moore.
Greg
Hi,
Moore,
Greg.
who likes to drive around topless, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of the biscuit.
All right, next story. There's a man in Nevada who was in court, and he's being charged with attempted murder. And in the middle of his sentencing, he didn't agree with the judge. He decided to just sprint and leap over the desk and attack her. And I don't know if you saw the video, but it reminded me of like Troy Polamalu jumping over the defensive line to like sack the quarterback. I mean, that's what I saw immediately. Dude just flying through the air like Superman.
Yeah,
To
he had
attack
some
this
athleticism. If he made some better choices in life, he'd probably be doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, he should be repping us in the Paris Olympics this summer.
Mm-hmm.
What is he doing? High jump. Come on, man. Said he's in jail.
He's just so close. It's, murder and attempted murder. It's a skill level, right?
Yep.
So close. So close.
Man. Well, there are many wild stories going on, and we could sit here all day and probably talk about some. But as the curse of Grant's Pickle lives on, we'll continue to visit some of these wild stories. Tell us what you think are some good stories of 2024, and we'll talk about them. But we're kind of caught up on what's happening around our nation here. But let's find out what our listeners are up to with some comments, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for comments.
Oh yeah. That is the sound I made while reading these comments. In preparation for this episode. I think somebody's got the recording of me making that sound, don't they? I sent that to somebody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have been we've had some episodes coming out, but we personally have been on break for a minute. So there's a lot of good stuff comments wise from the past several weeks. So I've got a lot here. Let's go through and we'll pick out some good ones. So I'll start out with Ethan on our last week's episode of our best of 2023 DudeFax episode, which if you haven't watched that and haven't listened to all our episodes or haven't watched all our episodes, go check that out. It's a good recap of some of the highlights from last year. But Ethan said, he said, I will always love the humor from y'all, which we appreciate that, Ethan. I know that our wives would probably not agree, but we're glad that somebody appreciates our humor. And Ethan also said, I think I'd like to see trivia and or competitive games from y'all to see what chaos would come from it. And then somebody screenplay on YouTube said like Jeopardy and someone host it would be amazing. Or Ethan
What is
said,
Jeopardy?
like, Family Feud or a Dude Feud. So
I like clever. Dude Feud.
Yeah, I think that
good.
might be something that has to happen.
Yeah,
at some point. My question is, can we get Steve Harvey to host it?
I hope so.
He might. I mean, with what Cat is it? Cat Williams is that guy? Is that the one that said stuff about Steve Harvey last week?
Oh yeah. Yep. And
Kevin might be looking for a job.
That's it, Jeff. Sure. You did a wedding at Steve Harvey's ranch, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
So maybe you are in
for one of Oakcrest's former youth. Yep. Need to call Jessie up and see if she still got the connections.
Yeah, but can you get us in touch with Steve?
Her dad.
Yeah.
Her dad's name is Steve too.
That'd be amazing.
Silas, as a 2-year-old, danced with Steve Harvey's daughter. So,
all right.
He did.
It's like it's a famous adjacent story.
So a real quick story about that. This is funny. So, if for those who are listening don't know, one of my former youth who was in the youth group with Ryan, Jessie, she had this story where she was marrying a soldier. Long story short, Steve Harvey, she went on the Steve Harvey show and he decided to plan a wedding for her and pay for it. And so she called me up and asked me to officiate it. So I did this wedding for a former youth that was on Steve Harvey's ranch outside of Dallas. And it was on TV on the Steve Harvey show. Mm-hmm. And my entire family came with me. And my daughter, Karis, at the time, she was like 5, 6 years old. Anyways, she was so excited about the prospect of being on TV. And so, of course, we go do the wedding. They film the whole thing, camera crews there. The day that it's supposed to come out on TV, we DVR it because I think it was during the day or something. And we sit down to watch. Actually, my wife and I sat down and watched it. And it was good, done well. But they only showed like Karis's shoulder in one shot, and that was it. And so Karis was all excited to watch it because she's like, I'm going to be on TV. This is going to be sweet, and all that good stuff. Well, then the entire thing airs, and Stephanie and I were both like, we're a little nervous because Karis is going to be so upset. And it actually shows her at the very end, her shoulder. And so that part with the shoulders, like not until the end. So it shows that part, and then it cuts off and it's over. And we're just waiting for the tears to flow. And she turns around and looks at us and she was like, my shoulder was on TV. She was so excited. And I was like, well, it doesn't take much to, get her excited. So yeah, funny story.
Yeah. That's the Mike Wazowski, right? Yeah. I'm going to be on TV.
That's that glass half full attitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We can all learn from that.
It's like I'm on Netflix for 2.5 seconds. It's great.
Oh, that's right. I remember you showed us that.
Oh. Yeah. Let's see. We got some other good comments here. So we had a couple of sports related TikToks go out there. One talking, reigniting the LeBron versus Jordan debate. Which I feel like it's because less of a debate and more of like just a bunch of people being wrong. But we had a comment from Brian Reeves, the voice of Austin P.
Yeah.
Who said Jordan, end of discussion, which
right.
I feel like that says enough right there. And then I believe Tyler also commented on it. Yeah, Tyler said But MJ would win all of the season tournaments because I believe LeBron had just lost a season tournament.
The in-season tournament? No, didn't they win it? I think the Lakers won it, and they even put it up in their arena. That they won
that's
an
right.
in-season
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah, they did.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
They have a
They put
banner,
it up in their
Staples
arena,
Center.
and people were upset because
So dumb.
they were like, "Man, why isn't that's not a championship banner?" And then also we talked a little bit about Austin P basketball.
Let's go P.
Clarksville, and we had a couple comments. So Aiden Stewart on TikTok said, "Oh yeah, boys, y'all don't know about Hansel. He's a legend." Which, I mean, watching that gameplay of him, he definitely is a legend.
Y'all don't know.
And we also had on Instagram on the same video, we had them talking about Brian Reeves said that we're invited to come out to a game and check him out so we can go out and see Hansel in person. And then we had
Hey, do I get a rain check for that one?
We'll FaceTime you in.
Yeah, we'll put you. We'll make sure you're there. But then it's your boy that guy said, "Are you talking about at Emmanuel Hansel?" And we said, "Of course." And he's awesome. So
What if that was Emmanuel Hansel? That's his handle.
he has
No
2
pun
accounts.
intended. Handle.
That's our boy.
That would be awesome, actually. Go into accounts and be like, "Hey, y'all heard about this guy?" Like, feed him to his main account. That would be great.
Yeah.
Clapping like.
We also had Seiko dropped back in the comments on TikTok on our video,
Yeah.
Seiko.
morphing us all into 1930s fashion. Seiko said, "Ryan, you better stop looking at me like that." And if you haven't seen that video, there's all of us turn into like we have like very distinct, like we look like somebody else. But a lot of people pointed out that I looked like Leonardo DiCaprio, which I thought was really funny that we had, I think Jeff, you said it originally when you texted us that video, but also we just had people randomly say that on our social media.
Yeah. I thought you did have a very seductive look about you.
I've been told
So.
that. Yeah. That's what they tell me at work on a daily basis.
Oh, nice.
I think I need to call HR, but it'll be okay. And let's get a couple more in here.
And I thought Grant looked like a young Christopher Walken in that.
Grant definitely looked like a young Christopher Walken, but he also acts like Christopher Walken, so
What?
that made sense. That makes me.
I'm going to give you this watch.
Of him on SNL. He's like, and next, Foo Fighters.
Foo, fight us.
Pronouncing that. And
His role in Joe Dirt, man.
Oh my! Classic.
Smash his face with a soldering iron.
And then Humble But Right commented on our video of us opening gifts, and we talked about dude wipes because I was gifted some dude wipes. He said, "Speaking as a heavy sweater and a regular coffee bar visitor every Sunday morning, rocking dude wipes makes the perfect top to bottom sense." Which I think is I've used the dude wipes since then, and I would agree they're pretty good. But I will say, in my personal review of them, they kind of leave me a little too wet, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
So I have to take some regular TP after and dry it off.
I don't know if I want to know what you mean.
As a bidet user, I'm curious at the comparative experience. Please.
Well, they're
Maybe we
mints,
should
so
try
they
it
have
live
like
on the
There's like a
podcast.
tingle to them, which is nice. Almost like a menthol. It's pretty. It's a weird sensation. I never thought I'd feel.
What is your problem?
And then I'll end with Standing Coffee commented on us and said, "Glad you guys entered the podcasting world. Grateful for your content and hard work every week." And we also appreciate you as a loyal listener of the DudeFax podcast and all of our other loyal listeners of the DudeFax podcast.
That's right. Thank you, Standing Coffee. So Seco did write us a direct message as well on TikTok, a couple of messages. You know how you can like wave at people on TikTok? Well, he waved because I was on, I think, posting a video. And I said, "What's up? Happy New Year." And he said, "Happy New Year." This was like on the 28th of December. He said, "Happy New Year. Hope everything is going great for all of you." And I replied back. And then I tagged him in the MJ versus LeBron video. And he wrote back on that. He said, "Can I say LeBron has 5 rings and 5 MVPs now?" He said, "Yes, I do know Jordan has 6 and 6. LOL." So good that Seco's giving us some good-natured commenting as well.
Oh yeah, we'll love Seco. We always love to hear your incorrect opinions about LeBron and Jordan.
That's right. So yeah, if you have comments, make sure you get them in. Ryan will read them, and we will enjoy talking about them. But Ryan's going to do something now that he has not done in a while, and I think this is like the most exciting thing.
I'm excited.
That's going to happen on this podcast.
Oh,
so it's time for the soda sommelier.
All right. So for today's soda sommelier, we have the reemergence of Lester. If you can see his face there.
Oh yeah, Lester's back. Lester's Fixins.
Lester's Fixins. So this is mustard flavored soda.
Ooh la la.
It does say it comes with pure cane sugar, so that makes it better. I don't know.
Does it have Grey Poupon?
I should have asked him that. Do you have any Grey Poupon? Okay,
but of course.
So let's get in here. It's actually,
but his dude wipe might have some poop on it after this.
I feel sorry for his dude wipe after this.
Wait,
proceeds to cut hand.
Lighters because I don't have a bottle opener on me.
Opener.
Ooh, that's a nice pop.
That's a good pop.
Is it a good pop?
We're about to
find out.
All right, let's get some
photo
gulps in here.
Oh, get a smell first. Smell. Oh.
Oh, I smelled it while it was in my mouth. It was terrible.
That's what she said.
Woo! That is potent. I'm gonna be honest. The smell is worse than the flavor.
That's so easy. Keep talking, right?
I'm just dropping them left and right. So taste-wise, it tastes like sugar. I don't taste much mustard, but I smell plenty of mustard out of the funnel. And it smells almost like a sour mustard smell. It's not a good smell.
That's what your dude wipe said. Or will say.
Yeah, it's like my dude wipes are going to get the back into this later. But yeah, this is. I feel like it'd probably be better if I just took like actual yellow mustard and mixed it with water and carbonized it.
Bet. Do it. Prove it.
I'll have to buy a soda stream for that. But
that would be awesome.
This is way too sweet. I don't like this.
Dang picklewood!
I don't. Normally, I'd like drink all these when I drink these sodas, but I don't think I'm going to finish this one. This is not my favorite.
You know what you need with it?
I tell you what, I will chug it for the podcast because
Here you
I
go, people.
love our DudeFax viewers this much.
So you got to comment and like this just because Ryan's
I gotta
chugging
get
it.
one more sniff here. Oh gosh, it's terrible. All right, let's see if I can get the label in there while I'm chugging.
I feel like
Look at his face.
Oh, I don't want to smell that.
I burped while I was chugging it, and then I burped just now. Oh, it's the worst.
I'm gonna mark that clip.
That was horrendous. Woo.
Okay, Ryan, I feel like you should take hot dog water
Oh
and
gosh.
put that in the soda stream and chase that down with one of those.
Oh man. I may have to. I'll have to price out some soda streams. I may have to get one just for the DudeFax podcast, so I can taste out some different soda combinations. Be interesting.
Do you like the water from a tuna can?
Oh gosh, terrible.
So I wonder whose idea it was to just say, you know, what would make a great soda? Mustard.
We'll have to see. I think Lester's Fixins also makes some other flavored sodas. I'm looking at getting a variety pack ordered, so
Yeah.
we'll have to see some other flavors they got.
Well, you know, the pickle the pickle soda that I drank a few months ago from Lester, it wasn't terrible,
That sounds so bad.
but it was similar
Lester's
to.
pickle.
I know I had to drink Lester's pickle juice, but it was similar to the way you described the mustard because it just tasted like sugar, but it smelled of pickle, and so it like made your brain think I am drinking pickle right now.
Yeah.
But I did get my wife to try it, by the way, and she hated it.
Your wife
about to
tried
say.
your pickle soda?
Yep.
Enjoy Lester's
delicious.
pickle soda.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so wrong.
I hope to never drink that soda ever again. That was terrible.
Well, thanks, Lester, for giving us more laughter. And hey, if you have a soda flavor that you'd like Ryan to try, comment and let us know. And at least give Ryan some love for chugging the mustard soda. So we need a lot of comments on a TikTok video or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Just
Yeah,
because
I probably
Ryan,
ruined my dinner just now. So
yeah,
I did
just
that
for you.
because I love you guys.
Let's give him
for
an
the audience
Austin
out
P
there.
basketball all-star round of applause.
I don't know if I can participate in that.
All right, so Grant's already making the jokes, so let's go ahead and get to Grant's dad joke for the day. Maybe. If the song will play. Oh, man. Our song's not playing.
Dang picklewood. Oh,
That's playing.
It was playing.
Let's see. Let's try it again.
I fart in your general direction.
I don't think that's it. That's
Everything else plays, so the Grant song, for whatever reason, is just spinning.
well, everyone
So,
knows
you-
it. So just like imagine.
Yeah, you may have to do this. Let's try the sexy music.
Doing this one a
Oh,
cappella.
that doesn't work either. Yeah.
Tom Cruise using witchcraft on me to get the fire off me.
I mean, like, the random clips work, but for whatever reason, our music is not working. So, Grant, we'll just have to tell this, and you'll have to envision the music.
So a farmer sold off part of his farm to a developer who built a subdivision. And people started moving into their homes in the subdivision, new construction, And they're getting to know the farmer because he stuck around with his wife and they kept part of their property. And one of the neighbors says, "Hey, man, I noticed you have a pig with 3 legs. How did it lose a leg?" He said, "Well, one day I was working on my tractor and, I jacked up the tractor to change a tire and the jack stand failed and the tractor fell on my arm. And, I turn around and who comes running to help me? But no one but this pig. This pig came running out of nowhere and gave me a hand." So the neighbor goes, "Oh my goodness. And that's how it lost a leg?" He said, "Nope." Then a couple weeks later, my wife dropped her wedding ring down our sink and she got her hand stuck in the drain, and she's trying to get her ring out, and her hand is stuck, and our toddler's running, and they're going to push the garbage disposal button in the sink. And who comes to help my wife? No one but this pig. This pig ran out of nowhere into the little doggy door from the backyard and saved my wife. And I helped her get her hand out. And the neighbor says, so that's how your pig lost an arm? Says, no. Then another day, I'm out there working in the woodshed. I'm doing all these projects, cutting up little logs and making things for my other kids' school fair on the bandsaw. And sure enough, the hoodie I was wearing, one of the strings got caught on the bandsaw, and the bandsaw keeps tugging me closer and closer, little by little, and I'm afraid I'm going to get chopped to death. And who comes to help me? No one but this pig. So the neighbor frustratingly says, so that's how the pig lost a leg? The farmer says, no. So the neighbor says, then how did the pig lose a leg? And the farmer says, listen, if you have a pig that good, you don't eat it all at once.
Music's appropriate because it's kind of a sad joke.
Yes. That's right. That was high quality bacon.
Mm-hmm. The pig's a hero.
Well, and a high quality joke too. So we are thankful that you have listened to this first part. It's been a while since we've been together, so we had to go a little bit longer and just enjoy some catching up. But in our second part, that's right. So you mustard stick around and listen to part 2, in which we're going to talk about why do bad things happen to good people, and why does it seem like bad people have good things occur in their lives, and is it okay to ask that question why? We're going to dig into that specific question, talk about that a little bit, so you want to stick around for part 2. But we hope you enjoyed part 1. Re-listen to it, comment, and then go back and listen to part 2 like lots and lots of times, because it'll be just that good. So thanks for sticking around. Part 2 coming up next. Hello guys, and welcome to part 2. We promise Ryan will not chug any more mustard soda on this part. So if you're looking for that, go back and listen to part 1 or watch part 1. And you can listen to that and Ryan's belch all you want. And so if you missed part 1 and you're listening to part 2, Ryan had a pretty epic mustard soda belch. But we're not going to get into that too much because we have a topic to discuss. And the topic tonight is, why do bad things happen to good people? That age-old question. Or why do good things seem to happen to bad people or people that don't seem to deserve it? And so that question, why God, is often a question that we hear that we've probably all asked ourselves when we're going through something chaotic, difficult, troublesome, just unsure, uncertain times. But we want to start this discussion by asking, and we'll talk about this a little bit together, is it okay to ask the why question? I mean, is it okay for us to go to God and say, God, why? What do you guys think about that?
Is it okay to ask why?
Yeah.
Why not?
Hey.
Yeah. No, I think it's always okay to ask why. I think it's natural to ask why. I think when things happen, whether to you or to other people around you, we see terrible things in the news all the time. It's a very human response to want to seek out reason for things that are unreasonable and that don't make sense to us. So I definitely think that is an okay response to have. And it's not not the first time and not the last time that I'm sure that has been brought to God by a multitude of people.
Well, I think that's a question that everyone asks. I think there are oftentimes Christians who, when faced with evil or what they're viewing as evil, feel like they're bad Christians to question God. Christians to question God. But you're just being honest. And we're told to cast all of our fears or anxieties on the Lord, for he cares for us. I think God's shoulders are big enough to take our questions. So that would be my encouragement for Christians on why it's okay to ask why is, well, we're told to cast our cares on him, and that means being honest with him. But then also my challenge toward any atheists would be mindful of to whom you are asking. You're not casting your questions into the universe. You're casting your questions to the one that you're angry at his existence. So have an honest conversation about to whom you're asking. Why is there evil?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up honesty, Grant, because that was my initial thought too. Is, and as you mentioned, Ryan, it's a very human response, that why. And I think for us to repress that as Christians and say, no, you can never ask why. How dare you ask why? I think is, a little bit dishonest, because, in our hearts, we are asking that why question. We are wondering. And I think it's okay to be curious. I don't think God wants to rip that out of us. That's not what God means by, wanting us to trust him, say that you can't ever ask why. I think it's okay with an understanding that we may never get the actual answer to the why question. And so we can ask it all we want, but I think it's part of the grieving process. But also I think it sort of opens the door for us to have a real and honest conversation with God and to hear from God. And ultimately, I think it is healthier to transition that why, which may be initial and honest, into a what question. As James 1:5 says, if you lack wisdom, ask God. And so God wants to give us wisdom. He wants to fill us with wisdom. And when we struggle to have answers, we go to God knowing who he is and say, God, what would you have me do in spite of what has happened? What would you have me do in these circumstances? And so God may never give you that full satisfactory answer, probably never will give you that full satisfactory answer to the why, but he will give you the what. Say, well, this is where I'll have you go. This is what I'll have you do. And I think that's imperative for us, one, to in a grieving process and a healing process, but also to begin to make sense of what is happening around us, or at least to get back on track to our purpose and our relationship to God, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And a lot of people just in our society and culture, a lot of people like to think of, like, when bad things happen, they think of God as like this kid with a magnifying glass that's just like, picking and choosing, when bad things happen to who, and, people who have good things happen to them, or, all that stuff. And it's not that simple, for one. There's plenty of instances, in the Bible, for one, that where things happen contrary to what God's wishes were. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that, part of our humanness and our agency is the ability to go against, what God has asked of us and commanded of us. And, a lot of times that leads to bad things happening, on a wide scale in our world. And what God does say to us through the Bible is that he's aware of this, and he's aware that these bad things happen. And he gives us those, things like Grant talked about, casting your doubts and your fears and, your worries and all that stuff on God. He provides us a place to go and to find comfort in. And, like you said, Jeff, find, what am I supposed to do in this situation, in this stuff that doesn't make sense to me? How am I supposed to move forward and move on? God does help us there. And it's not like we're just left to our own devices in these moments.
Yeah, and you kind of answered a question that we were going to discuss as well, or began to answer it, Ryan, is, why is there evil? And that's the question that's often asked in this as well, when people are trying to understand God and why a God would allow certain things to happen. But for our listeners and to engage that conversation, if somebody comes to you and asks you, why is there evil in the world? What's a way that we can respond to that biblically and truthfully to that individual to help them in their, I guess, quest for knowledge and asking these questions?
Well, I think the origin would be just sin in general. We started texting about this earlier this week, that the topic would be, why do good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people? So we have the first recorded sin, probably Eve and Adam entertaining Satan and then partaking of a fruit that they were told not to eat. And then look at their kids. You see one offering a righteous sacrifice to the Lord and him being the first murder, because his brother, who didn't offer right sacrifices to the Lord, murdered him. So this idea of bad things happening to good people and good things happening to bad people kind of happens very quickly in our scriptures. What's that, chapter 4?
Yep.
Of Genesis. So it's a Beauty and the Beast situation, a tale as old as time. So one, you're not alone. So I'm counseling somebody through something like this. Well, sin is the cause, or sin kind of opened up that door. It's been happening ever since the first family. So you're in good company. But I would also encourage people at that point, evil is not something that's beyond God's control. And that's where it gets into kind of scary territory. Mm-hmm. Evil is not something that has power over our God. As scary as it might sound, I find it comforting a lot.
Yeah.
That situations I view as evil are not beyond my God's control or influence.
It's definitely comforting, but at the same time, you do have those folks question, well, then why would God allow it? If he has power over it, why is God allowing this to happen? And why did he even allow the first sin to enter into the world? Why didn't he intervene and stop it?
Or to philosophize, the famous instance, why would an evil spirit from the Lord come upon Saul, as we see in the book of 1 Samuel?
Mm-hmm.
So is God not sovereign over instances like that? One famous illustration, which is also terrible because all illustrations fall down, but it's to illustrate our faulty perception. So a ski patrolman sets off a controlled avalanche to save lives. So he skis up to the top of the mountain, sets off the explosion, watches the avalanche, and he goes, that was good, and skis home. The guys that were camping in the tree line, who that ski patrolman was unaware of, who die in that avalanche, that was an evil instance. Now, I'm not saying that the ski patrolman was God and the people that died are us. However, we do have different perceptions of things. There have been many instances in my life that I've thought, this is an evil thing that's happening, Lord, make it stop, that ultimately ended up for my benefit, that I'm glad he did not stop.
Yeah.
Well, and you talked about 1 Samuel, like one of my favorite instances of just, not necessarily with like evil things happening, but just with, God allowing things to happen that are not necessarily what his wishes are. Is 1 Samuel warns Israel against having a king, and God telling them, basically through Samuel, that you don't need a king, you have me.
Yeah.
Like that's not needed, but Israel, they chant, we want a king. Like there needs to be a king over us. And then through that, God brings forth Saul and works through Saul to give him wisdom and to lead the people of Israel. So it's not just because Israel went against God's wishes doesn't mean that he was absent from the result.
Mm-hmm. And two, we can get philosophical about it as well. And there's a lot of sort of rabbit trails that we can go down on this. But, thinking back to the fact that we have a loving God who has given us the ability to choose. He didn't make us mindless robots, but gave us the freedom to choose and to, make decisions in life. Now, there's a lot that we can digress on that, but unfortunately, because sin entered into the world, we've, as mankind, have chosen to rebel against God. And so a lot of this is, God has the power over it, but when we go back to the source of it, it's us. As James 1 continues to say, it's not God who tempts us, but it's, when we're lured and enticed by our own desires, that's when it gives birth to sin. And so, again, it's about perspective, as you said, Grant. And, we have a God who in Isaiah 55:8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." We have a God who could, if he wanted, give us the entire blueprints, but it would blow our mind. I mean, there's no way that we could handle it. It's
called
beyond
Yah's ways.
That's right, Yah's.
Yahweh's.
And so we could, we could ask those questions, those why questions, and God could give us that answer. But is that really going to be what's best for us? We choose sin every day, which is not what's best for us, even though we know what right looks like. We still mess it up. And so, when we start to really dive into this and think about it, we got to realize, again, our place, and be thankful that we have a God who has power over it, a God who is loving, and at the same time look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm part of the problem in that evil. I contribute to it, and look at ways in which we can follow Christ more closely and not contribute to it.
Yeah. Oftentimes, man's selfishness is the root cause of so many, bad things that happen in our world.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about like Jeremiah. They're facing the Babylonian captivity, and especially the section of Jeremiah where he's talking back and forth to the Lord. He's asking this exact question of the Lord. Righteous you are, O Lord, when I complain to you, yet I would plead my case before you. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why do all who are treacherous thrive? So I think it's so fascinating that, God, there are many benefits ultimately for Israel because of the Babylonian captivity, but they wouldn't view it that way for many, many, many years. But God used it. And ultimately it was God telling Jeremiah, dude, just trust me. I have this under control. I planned this that you're viewing as evil. I planned it. It's actually punishment for you. It's because I love you. And that's why I like going back to God's control piece. It's not beyond him. Nothing's beyond him. Not even our most evil moments are beyond him. Cat.
I think
so.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to transition to a new thought. So if you have something,
I was just going to say
Go
that
ahead.
I think that we gather my thought here. I think that we oftentimes forget that even in the best of circumstances, our individual lives are short-lived in the greater grand scheme of things, and oftentimes that's where God's sight is. He's working on a much bigger picture than just the here and now. And I think that's easy for us to forget because we see things from such a small point in time and, in our world. So, it's something to remember is that, there's bigger things going on aside from just what is going on with you at that current moment.
Yeah. And, not only that, we're so small-minded about it that even those things that we think are what is good for us, just as we pray sometimes and ask God specifically how to answer that prayer, we think this is the best course for us. And when that doesn't happen, we see that as, oh, well, you're allowing this person to get what I prayed for, but I'm not getting that. Thus, why is God allowing good things to happen to them and not to me? When in reality, are those things what is best for us? Again, we look to Scripture. Guys like Paul saying, I count everything as lost because of the surpassing worth of knowing Jesus Christ. Ultimately, that is what is best for us. We're not guaranteed anything in this world or entitled to anything in this world, and don't necessarily need anything other than God himself. And, oftentimes we think we know what's best for us, what we ultimately need. And God's like, no, I got this. I got the plan. Just as you said, Grant, things that you think are evil that are happening to you, it turns out that God actually used that for your good and your benefit.
Like Joseph, that's exactly what he says.
Yep.
Yeah. Reunited with his brothers after they sell him into slavery and he's falsely accused and all that stuff. He is the one that finally sees it at the tail end, because God's will is largely determined in retrospect. Looking back, it's like you said, Ryan, we're volitionally living forward. Yet when we pause and look back, we see that God was good and providential and faithful and all of his attributes largely looking back. So the problem of evil in the moment can seem so big. That's where trust can seem so hard. Like, God, I trust you. This sucks, but I trust you.
Yeah, and Joseph is the ultimate. And why are these things happening to me? Stories. You don't really see Joseph get like that much in Genesis, but obviously we ask the question as we're reading it. It's like, here this guy is doing all the right things, and he just keeps running into bad luck after bad luck. But we're also privy to see the end of the story, the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. And we see how, what man intended for evil, God used for good, and the position that God ultimately put Joseph in the preservation of his people. And so a powerful story. If you haven't read it, and maybe you're reading through the Bible, doing one of those plans to start the new year, you're going to get to Joseph very soon, because most of Genesis is Joseph. But definitely really relates to the topic we're getting into today. Not really changing gears, but asking sort of a different question. How often have you seen this sort of mindset or mentality of the why God, why me, as a deterrent to faith? And do you have any examples that you've seen in your own life and ministry, or maybe just examples you see in the news in our world and talking to folks?
I mean, my Bears haven't beat the Packers since 2018. Why does so much evil happen to the good guys?
Sad.
It's so sad. Well, this topic that we're talking about is actually called the problem. They spanked my Bears. It's called the problem of evil. So for all of our listeners, if you want further reading and to read actual theology and philosophy written about this issue, it's called the problem of evil. How could a good, loving, benevolent God exist where all this evil persists in the world? How could a good God allow the Holocaust to happen? This is one of the biggest reasons the post-church people that I get to interact with, and I'm trying to win them back to our church from this church that we inherited. Long story. When I'm talking to those people, it's always instances of evil that's happened to them, or evil that's happened in their lives, or family members who went through horrific things and they prayed, Lord, let this not happen. Let this not happen. That's one of the largest reasons they'll give me for why they left a church, is because evil happened and God didn't intervene. All the time.
Yeah, and it's often that, and then obviously the whole adage of, well, people in the church don't live like people in the church should. The whole everyone in the church is hypocrites. That seems to be, it's almost like a broken record in counseling sessions. When I was a chaplain at West Point, I had so many interactions with cadets, and of course this has been true throughout all my ministry, youth ministry, and even as a chaplain, the 12 years I've been doing this. But I saw it so much at West Point, and I think specifically because I was at West Point during COVID 2020, and so cadets were locked down,
looking like ninjas.
Yeah, they were asking why quite a bit. But it was such a deterrent, because they're trying to understand God and his goodness. We sing about, he's a good, good father. And we sing that line like 300 times in that song. And they're like, well, why is he a good father? I mean, here I am stuck in my situation. And then we see all the events that happen around our world. You mentioned the Holocaust, Grant, but every time there's a mass shooting, it seems like this comes up. If it's not the gun debate, it's like, well, why would God allow this to happen? Why are there people starving around the world? Why are there people in Hollywood who, under a lot of suspicion are pedophiles, but yet they're successful? And these questions get thrown out quite a bit. And, I think are legitimate questions to ask. We talked about asking the why question. But again, I think it goes back to that simple mindedness. It is a deterrent to faith. But I think we as Christians have an opportunity when those discussions happen to really share truth about who God is. And, again, specifically in his relation, who he is in relation to us and our purpose. Because, if we try to, and we'll talk about this in a second, what is the wrong thing to say, but if we try to assume why God would do something, that's the wrong answer. And we don't know, but we're going to give a dishonest answer and probably screw that relationship up even more. It's better for us just to be honest and say, we don't know the why either, but here's what we know about God.
Yeah, I think I see it a lot in social media. Just strangers on the internet giving their opinions on stuff. A lot of people say that, give that kind of the roundabout answer of why, if God really exists, why would he allow X event to happen, type thing. And I think that a lot of people miss other sides of those things. So like, for example, like somebody might say, hey, there's people in poverty and starving on the streets, and they're, why would God allow this, these people to live like this? But then they just ignore the people that are going out and giving of their free time and of their own resources to help those people. And in my mind, that's part of God working in these moments when bad things happen. And oftentimes, not to say that Christians are the only people that do community outreach and do, good things in the world, but God did call us to be his hands and feet in the world. And, it's partly on us to go out and to do what we can to right those things and to, bring comfort to people in times of struggle and times of hardship.
And I think for American people, what's really hard is there are two types of good, and that's beneficial good and inherent good. And we are so economical that we'll think about good as in, well, was that a good use of my time? Did I get something good by my definition of what good is from spending my time with that person? We're so economical. The idea of beneficial good has very little bearing on us. Like, it's good for me to be with the family of Christ, or with the body of Christ. And the church is a very broken place. And the people at church can be annoying. And the people at church can totally misrepresent Christ. And that's kind of the point. That's why we worship Jesus. We're not winning people to ourselves. We're winning people to him. So I don't do church because it's beneficially good for me. I do it because it's inherently good for me. And so the problem with looking at the world in light of beneficial good is we are playing judge, determining what good is and what good is not. And we're determining what evil is. So we're being judged. And I think about the Isaiah passage where it pleased God to crush him, ultimately referring to what Jesus would do to take care of sin once and for all by dying for us on the cross. Even from God's perspective, if I try to put myself in God the Father's shoes, I would view that as an evil event, that my son had to die being righteous and shed his blood, his innocent, righteous blood for all of us sinners, universally and eternally. every person that's ever existed has been sinful except for Jesus. And he lived every minute of every day sinlessly, so that at the end of his life, he could offer his body as a sacrifice for our sin. So from the Father's perspective, that is just not fair. That is evil. That the innocent one would be killed on behalf of the many. But it pleased God. So even the Father's perspective is that very evil situation by any human standard was good. And ultimately, that was the greatest good that's ever come out of this world. So it's our faulty perspective. It's our sin, but God is good. He's inherently good. He might not feel beneficially good. God might call us to things like the cost of discipleship, picking up our cross daily and following him. That's not beneficially good. Why in the world would I do what I would consider beneficially evil? By denying myself, picking up my cross and following him. I wouldn't. It's my faulty perspective for not understanding beneficial and inherent goods.
And in addition to that, God teaches us so much in those moments as well. It's not to say that we can't hear God during what we might consider to be those times of blessing, those good times, but God teaches us so much when we're in pain, when we're struggling. And part of that is because it's not that God is speaking to us more, it's that our ears are open to receive that more. We recognize our need for God much more. C.S. Lewis says, God shouts to us in our pain. And so, it's important to remember that perspective too, is that we can hear God best in the bad things. Not to say that we celebrate evil because of it, but at the same time, we can look back and say, I'm glad I went through this event in my life, this crucible event in my life, because this has really shaped me and made me better, and God has taught me so much. But that's hard to say to an individual who's right in the thick of it. And so how do we minister to these folks that are struggling, that come to us, and maybe not even people that not necessarily come to us for advice, but maybe we enter into conversation with, that we work with, or maybe even in our own families? How do we minister to them in these moments where they're asking a lot of why questions? And then what is the wrong thing to say to these individuals? What can we say as Christians that is not beneficial? And what can we say that is?
Do we want to start with the bad first?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm spending more and more time with some military guys here, of all places. There's no bases around us other than like reserve posts. But I have several friends who are retired military. This has been a really interesting thing. So I have friends that were like a friend who's retired forced recon from the Marine Corps. He's a recon Marine, MARSOC, like actually kicking doors and like doing tough guy stuff. And I thought it was really interesting. I did a lot of reading on this because I was trying to counsel him and another friend who installed air conditioning on Marine Corps bases in the Middle East. And, from an outside perspective, I think, okay, some of the trauma that the guy had introducing people to Jesus seems a little more intense for me than a boom going off 10 miles away when I'm installing an air conditioning system. But I learned that like someone else's worst trauma in their life, if that's their 10, to their brain, that's their 10. And they're going to process it the same way that I'm going to process my 10. So what it helped me to avoid is perspectivism. Say, oh, you think that's bad?
Yeah.
Like, oh, your farmer's pig has one leg. Well, mine has only two, or lost one leg. Mine lost two. Like, so don't play the comparative game. Like, well, you think that's bad? In Africa, they don't even have food, or whatever you might want to compare it to. Yeah. So definitely don't compare.
Yeah. I think it's important not to be dismissive of people's, experience and their emotions, in a given situation. I think it's important to listen and to hear people and not just try to say what we want to say. Whenever I'm dealing with someone who has had, something awful happen in their lives and they're trying to work through it, my go-to response initially is to just tell me, Tell me what's on your mind, how you're feeling. I want to hear from you. I don't want to try and fix your problems. I don't want to try and, you know, I don't want to try and, act like what you are going through doesn't matter, because it does. So that's usually where I start, is just to let them get it out. I think it's an important thing that we can do as Christians, is just listen to people.
What about when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, why did God allow my brother to die?" And the Christian goes to him and says, well, it was God's will. How destructive is it for us to say something like that in that moment?
It's incredibly callous in a moment like that.
And maybe it's not said, quite like that, but, I've had conversations with many soldiers, cadets, who felt like they were dismissed because they went to somebody, a well-meaning Christian, in a time of need and struggle, specifically with cadets dealing not only with death, but of things like, being sexually assaulted. And, and I know that the church has taken a lot of heat on this, specifically the Baptist church, and pastors telling women, well, this is all a part of God's will. And while that may be technically true in the story of the universe, evil is not something that God intended, so I think it's misleading, but also in that moment, I think it's us trying to answer something, the most simple way possible, or trying to even provide an answer when in reality we don't know. And so, sometimes it's all about our presence and not what we say. And so when I think about ministering to these folks, I think about listening. I think about being present. And when they do ask questions, give honest answers and not try to pull something out of our butts and do more damage when that person's coming to us vulnerably in a time of need.
Yeah, I think things said in haste or without, proper thought in those moments can be ultimately much more damaging in the long run than the, whatever event it may be itself.
Jeff, did you mention Columbine earlier?
I didn't, but I mentioned mass shootings.
Yeah, so I think about Columbine. I think I was in like 5th grade when it happened. Like my school in Hawaii planted a tree for that and whatever. But that was a big one that put school shootings on the nation's radar. These 2 boys who went in with trench coats and machine guns and kind of slaughtered a bunch of classmates. And America was looking for a scapegoat. And it came out that the boys were listening to Marilyn Manson. You remember that? He was one of their favorite artists, Marilyn Manson. And so the world kind of pointed its gun at Marilyn Manson. And he said in a talk show, he was kind of being grilled by this talk show host, you were a huge influence on these boys. What would you have told them? And to Ryan, to your point, and Jeff, to your point, Marilyn Manson said in the interview something like, if I had a chance to have an audience with them, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have listened. I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
An evil person, God using for his, I think for good. Those are good words. And also just to validate the question, I think we forget that most pastors use the phrase, they really mean conversions. I want you to convert, but we'll say stuff like, I want you to have a relationship with the Lord. Begin your relationship with the Lord. Well, think about that relationship. How do we relate to the Lord? And if somebody is even claiming atheism, but they're struggling with the problem of evil, and that's brought to us, what an opportunity to help them relate to the Lord and see that they are relating to the Lord the same way that humans have been relating to the Lord for thousands of years, documented. You hear David, I have a couple bang bang ones I wrote down earlier today. Problem of evil is actually one of my favorite topics. I read the Jeremiah one, why do the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper? But let's see. I mean, the book of Job is essentially an illustration in this, like bad things happening to good people. David in the Psalms, 92:7, that though the wicked sprout like grass and all evildoers do flourish, they are doomed and to be destroyed forever. So we can think a little more eternal, less temporal. Malachi, now we call the arrogant blessed. Evildoers not only prosper, but they put God to the test and they escape. The wicked, here's what Job says. I think this one is really interesting. Why do the wicked live, reach old age, and grow mighty in power? Their offspring are established in their presence, and their descendants before their eyes. Their houses are far from fear, and no rod of God is upon them. It's just interesting that when people are questioning God specifically, how could God, or they might lie and say, how could a God, if God even exists, how could he do this? I think it's a really powerful counseling tool to say, that's an excellent question. And validate them, listen to them like you're sharing, Ryan, and say, and awesome people have been asking the same question for centuries. Let me show you. And not solve it for them. It's not our job to fix it. It's not our job to play God. The Holy Spirit, he'll enlighten and he'll love and he'll fill in all the gaps that we never can. Jesus already paid for it. But I think we can do a powerful job of just empathizing and saying, man, you're doing this human thing right. That's a right thing to ask. And I hope that creates a longing for that to be fixed once and for all. And if you're open, I'd love to share with you how the story ends. But in the meanwhile, sit in it. Just like King David sat in it. Just like Job sat in it. It's like Adam and Eve probably did when their sons are killing each other. It's like the Father probably felt. God himself empathizes with you right now. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
I think it's important to understand that we don't have all the answers, and we may never. And it's important to make that known to people when we are working, helping them work through things. And, especially to a non-believer, it's important to not act like we have all the answers, because we don't. And we can't. Oh,
my church knows that I know nothing.
Even in talking about evil, even in Ecclesiastes, there's a whole section talking about, the evil and, how there's, you're better to be somebody who has not yet been and not seen the evil deeds. But, that's not always the case. People have been contemplating this for a long time. It's not new. Mm-hmm. It's very, very human to ask these questions and have these thoughts.
And as Christians, we have to, fight the temptation to, try to fix too many problems at once, or even try to fix problems at all. But, I've known a lot of well-meaning Christians out there who, especially when somebody comes to you who's obviously been in a pattern of sin and they're seeing consequences of that sin, or maybe not even direct consequences of that sin. Bad things are happening to them, but they've been in sin. The Christian individual wants to call attention to that sin as being the reason, and focus more on that than actually empathizing and listening and loving on that person. So quite often I would get, and I've gotten this a lot from especially females that I've counseled. Hey, I was, out getting drunk with this group of people, and this one guy who I've kind of been talking to, invited me back to this Airbnb he had, and we had some more drinks. And then I woke up the next morning and my clothes were off, and I don't remember doing anything, but I'm pretty sure, he assaulted me, and now she's freaking out. And I've had instances in stories similar to that where, these ladies, or, even men in some regards, in some instances, have said that they've talked to Christian friends, even pastors and counselors who've, directly correlated to that. Well, why were you out drinking? Why were you even going back to this guy's apartment or whatever in the first place? There's a time and a place for conversations like that, but in the moment of this person asking for help and seeking answers, that's definitely not it. And so we have to be, again, very careful about the things we say. And I think, make sure that we are, doing a much more listening than we are talking sometimes, but also taking cues and then using the opportunities that we have, to build on that relationship so we can pour Jesus into that person. Were you about to jump in with something, Grant?
No, I just said, when you're talking about listening.
Oh. I thought you said, ha.
Huh?
Huh?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, too, when you think about, this is another sermon, but I'll be very short. You think like Zacchaeus, the corrupt tax collector. Right? I think about him as a prime example. His life was just changed by Jesus' presence. Jesus didn't have to tell him all the evil that he had done and to change his life. Jesus merely spent time with him, and he repented himself. Mm-hmm. So I try to remember that when people are going through some stuff where my flesh wants to say, well, you idiot, stop it. Yeah. STDs are not like Pokemon. You do not have to catch them all. And flies cause disease, so keep yours closed.
Jesus Juke.
Well, on that note, we are glad that you have listened to this conversation. As we do wrap up, in all seriousness, is there anything else, guys, that we didn't touch on in this conversation that you'd like to bring up or address?
I just would like to say that, when I personally am thinking about these questions and, you're just thinking about the philosophy of evil and why does it exist and bad things happening to people, I often think of the early church. And the evil that they experienced, the being under the Roman Emperor Nero, who was very, I know a lot of people like to act like they're persecuted in today's day and age, but, religious persecution was a real thing for many Christians, or, pretty much the entirety of the early church in that time. And you have instances where Paul, wrote whole letters to churches from his prison cell. And people focused on God in those times, and they came out the other side better for it. And not to say that all those people had great ends, but God ultimately did work through their time and their suffering for future generations to come.
So their 10 in trauma was being crucified or burned, but the 10 and those other people, it's getting a B+ in chemistry.
Right. Bad Wi-Fi at Passion Conference.
Yeah, no Wi-Fi. Not being able to get a Stanley Cup after waiting in line for 2 hours.
Yeah. Ryan, there's the famous quote: the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Brian Regan and Jerry Seinfeld on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. It's probably my favorite show. But they're talking about sports, and Brian Regan says something like, I could watch any sport if it's do or die, meaning win and you're in, lose and you're out. And Jerry responded, you would have loved the Christians versus the Lions. Gosh. And Jerry's like, listen, so what, they died at 30 instead of 35. It's not like people were living that much longer anyway.
That's good stuff.
Very hard.
Yeah. Brian Regan's going to be in Nashville in June, by the way.
Nice.
I'm excited. I'm about to go see it.
Well, relevantly to this one, he had Ricky Gervais on. I think it was the second time that he was on the show. And Ricky Gervais told Jerry Seinfeld this joke. And he said, this Holocaust survivor dies and goes to heaven. And when he gets to heaven, he meets God and tells God a Holocaust joke. And God tells a Holocaust survivor, that's not funny. And the Holocaust survivor says, well, then I guess you had to be there. Right. Which is perfect for this problem of evil. Mm-hmm. How could God let this good? Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, we've gone this whole podcast without mentioning Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So,
boo.
way to go, guys! We did it. Oh crap!
You think we can get collab with the New Heights podcast?
We should. We should at least try. I mean, they're both potentially going to get eliminated in the playoffs this weekend, so we'll see. As you're listening to this on Monday, you may already know, but yeah, if they're both out, they're going to be looking for some good news stories.
Oh yeah,
I thought Wild Card Weekend was all about playing Uno.
No,
that's weekend.
Uno nothing.
I know that. Do you remember all those memes where Donald Trump was like holding the paper, like in executive order he signed,
yeah.
right, and whatever. Yeah, my favorite from that era was from now on we're going to call Uno 1.
Yep,
it's pretty great.
I did reveal to you guys my predicto on the latest podcast. My sister got this as a joke. This isn't any endorsement of Trump or anything, but it's President Predicto. But you ask it questions and he answers. So we could end the podcast with you asking some questions if you want. Anybody have a question?
And do we want to ask if Travis Kelce will be eliminated from the playoffs?
Oh, goodness.
100%.
Oh,
there you go.
Hey. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot to see if President Predicto is right.
But he's kind of corrupt, right? So he could be wrong.
Will Patrick Mahomes cry?
I would say maybe.
That's it.
Okay, yeah.
So either way, you go either way.
It's like going to an actual fortune teller. Like, I don't know, maybe.
Will Grant's pickle continue to curse 2024?
We'll see what happens.
Okay. So sometimes he's a little vague.
It's very non-committal.
Just like a politician.
Yeah. Oh.
So, but yeah, guys, thanks for the conversation today. Those of you that hung on and listened to all 50 minutes of part 2.
Woo.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you continue to listen. Continue to pray for Josh that he gets better, and we're excited when he gets to join us back next week. If you just can't get enough of the DudeFax, go back and listen to part 1 again, but go back and watch some of the other episodes. We're like at 44 or 5 now, so you got so many that are now just in syndication that you can go back and just watch over and over again. So plenty of good stuff out there.
100 episodes. On our 100th episode, I'll chug hot dog water.
Bet.
Yes.
But like 5-day-old hot dog water.
Oh, God.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next time.
Affirmative.